Should water bosses be jailed if their companies keep pumping sewage into our rivers and to our seas? 0207 862 2222 is the number that you need to give us a call. Let us know your thoughts. Under new government plans, executives could face 2 years behind bars and a ban on bonuses if they fail to combat pollution. The new Water Special Measures Bill aims to toughen up the law around water companies after sewage spills in English rivers more than doubled last year. And while some have welcomed the news, others say it's just a window dressing and actually it lacks teeth. Speaking about the proposed jail time for bosses, the musician and turned campaigner Fergal Sharkey said this. He said, the idea is already part of the Companies Act and has been there for almost 20 years. Want to know how many company bosses have ever been prosecuted? Never mind gone to jail in that time? That'll be none. What a wasted opportunity. But are those comments fair? Is 2 years in jail harsh enough? Or is there a better way of dealing with dirty waterways and companies who pollute them? Get your calls in now. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Esther, what do you make of this?
I think Fergal's right. I do think it's a wasted opportunity. I am all for punishing water companies that pollute our water bodies. I think Ofwat actually needs some more teeth. It's not a very effective enforcer. But I think we need to put it into context. Water companies would rather pay over £90 million in fines than actually investing in the infrastructure to not pollute our waterways. Our water companies are owned by private equity funds in Canada, the Qataris, for example. Do you really think they care that Doreen in Richmond is having her nearest water body have sewage floating in it? They're not invested in Britain. I know that there's some companies, pension funds that are invested in our water companies, but that's less than a fifth. It's just a small fraction of the actual companies that really mainly own our water companies. So I think the question is, what is actually the correct action that would make these water companies act? If £90 million isn't enough, then up it. It should always cost them more to pay the fine than to do the right thing. And I don't think, arresting one water boss is going to do it. They're part of a company. They don't make decisions by themselves. They have pressures from shareholders, from other sort of members of the company. To put it on one person is not going to be the solution.
Yasmin, what do you make of this? The criticism of the new government announcers is that you can do all this with existing law already. Problem is, you're not doing it.
I totally agree with Esther and Fergal that they're doing the bare minimum, the new government. We need this industry nationalised, because water, more than anything else, is life's essential. And I wonder, I think to myself, those protesters who went on Stop Oil marches have been banged up for 5 years, some of them, right? And these guys who are destroying how many lives, and barely, not one of them has been in prison, not one of them has been shot. And it shows again and again and again this thing that is now obsessing me, that in our society, justice itself panders to the rich and punishes the poor. And we have to have real cases, first properly nationalised, have the courage, Keir Starmer, go nationalise. Most of the public will agree with you. Well,
the minister in charge says it would cost too much to nationalise.
I'm sure that's what he said.
And I also think that only paints part of the story. So we haven't invested in any reservoir since, I believe, 1986 was the last time we built a reservoir. We lose the size of Olympic pools, 30 Olympic pools in water leaks every single day. It's not just about the water sort of the sewage. It's also about the infrastructure that supports the water that we need. So yes, obviously we shouldn't have sold off our water companies. I think that's
But interesting to see, just very quickly, because I know people are waiting to speak to us, but do you think that actual bosses should face jail time? Now, everybody says you could do this already, but let's set the legalese apart. Do you think that a water boss should be personally liable if they're found to be breaking the rules and they should be going to prison? Do you think they should? No. Yasmin?
I think they should be one of many who should be going to prison. They have boards, they have investors.
OK, so you think...
They all, and what about Ofwat? Who's going to punish Ofwat, which has done nothing?
OK, all right. Well, look, let's get into this with what people are having to say at home. Jean in London's got in touch. Jean, good afternoon. What do you make of this? What do you make of it?
what I make of it is, if they can find room in the prisons to put them in the first place, then
very good point.
Our prisons are full to busting. I think they should take all those big profits that they're making, the bosses, I mean, the ones at the top of the tree that are raking in all the profits. That money should be taken away from them and put into cleaning up the rivers and seas that they've polluted.
Yeah, I mean, Jean makes a good point. Look, one of the big executive of Severn Trent, the water company, took a £500,000 bonus, while the same company was fined £2 million. So they're finding £2 million, but you still have the execs making those bonuses. Esther, how would that work, do you think? Do you think that the companies would find clever ways of getting around it? Like we saw in the banking industry.
Split responsibility or rename roles and say, actually, this isn't the CEO, he's just a consultant or
something. This isn't a bonus,
exactly.
This is a...
I mean, look, I'm in favour of what works. And to actually do what works, you have to go after the money, because at the end of the day, these are companies and they will do anything to avoid losing money. And you have to hit them where it hurts. If they can avoid if they would rather pay a £90 million fine, £500,000 bonus is nothing.
So maybe Jean's right. Jean, take aside the fact that we don't have any prison spaces available, perhaps in Estonia, who knows? But do you think that prison is the answer? Do you think if they're going to find clever ways to get round the money issue, then do you think actual prison time for the people who are running these companies is the answer?
Yeah, well, I would agree with putting them in prison if there's enough space to put them in. Okay. That's the only problem. Our prisons are full. So what prisons are they going to use to put these people in? Who are, if Joe or Joanna Bloggs was doing the same thing, they'd be in prison before their feet could touch the ground.
True.
These lot, they do it year after year. We had beautiful, sparkling, clean rivers and seas, and now it's come back to the few decades ago when the rivers were filthy, and they cleaned them all up, and now they've let them become polluted again. It's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting.
Jean, thank you for kicking us off. Let's speak to Pamela in Shropshire. Pamela, good afternoon. What would you like to say, Pamela?
Good afternoon. I think some of the issues that we have, we bring this up to discuss it, but we have to understand that at the moment, wastewater that's like off our roofs and when we have flash flooding goes into the sewage system. And we either have to put the investment in, whether we take it back out of the hands of the water board if they're not acting in a lawful manner. Our rivers are important, pollution's important to all of us. And yet we don't understand that what's happening is when we have these flash floods and water comes down and we're taking water that's clean water that could be separated and put into the rivers, it's going in with the sewage, and because they can't deal with it, they put the whole lot into the river. So send them to jail if they don't do the investment, but you have to give a time scale and do it, not just fine people, because the fines could be put into putting it right.
Yeah.
So somebody has to take responsibility, and we either have to take it back into the hands of an independent body, not into a money-making operation. And no, they shouldn't get any bonuses whatsoever.
Yeah. Pamela, thank you. Really, really important point from Pamela there, that the way our system is structured, where we have what's called the grey water, is the water that comes off the pavements or off your roof, that actually doesn't really need to be treated. That's combined with the sewage, and it all goes to the sewage treatment, which is why they're overwhelmed. However, water companies have been known to dump sewage during dry periods as well.
Yes.
And that is where I think a lot of people are saying, why is the Environment Agency or Ofwat not doing more?
Exactly.
But here's the thing. I didn't know this, and I was shocked when we were looking at this item today. Regulators have got what's called the growth duty, where they have to prioritise growth over the environment. And that is something...
And that is something we really have to watch out for, because we had Mad Liz Truss on this growth agenda. We now also have a Chancellor who keeps going on about everything depends on growth. Well, growth at this cost is questionable. And I think, thank you, Pamela, because you've really explained something so well and made me think about putting people into prison, totems, if you like, totemic imprisonments, will make us feel, oh, well, they're doing something. But the problem is deeper and wider than these guys at the top.
Let's hear from Sarah, who's got in touch from Surrey. Sarah, welcome to the show. Do you think prison term or preventing people from claiming bonuses, do you think it's going to change? Or do you agree with Pamela and Yasmin? I think everybody here, but actually the problem is deeper rooted than just who's in charge of the companies.
I think most certainly if a company is not investing, is found to be putting sewage in dry times, then obviously no, they should not have their bonuses. With regards to prison time, then obviously there's several other things that goes into the ramification of this, but I think we need the term deterrent, and I think yes they should, because at the end of the day, and we've talked about this before in terms of the post office scandal, that if you're taking vast amounts of money to run a company, you're taking vast amounts of bonuses, knowing that your company is doing things legally, then as head of that company, you should be held accountable.
I think that the only thing I would say to counter that is a CEO of a company has a fiduciary duty to the shareholders, right? Their duty is not to us. Yes. Their duty is to the shareholders.
To make them more money.
So you could argue in their capacity, they're just doing their job. And this is the reason why I say, so far as their job is not illegal, imprisoning them would be pointless. And it's already part of the Companies Act. You have to go deeper. The people that are actually running these water companies, the people that hold shares in them, are not invested in Britain. They're not invested in British problems. They're not invested in the fact that Doreen has sewage running in her nearest water body. No. That's the problem. I'm not saying necessarily nationalising will make everything better, because you could argue that, you know, maybe they might not have invested more. But I fundamentally don't believe we should have sold off our water companies. And once you've opened Pandora's box, it's hard to really get it back in.
OK. Sarah, thank you. Let's take a quick call from Martin in Flintshire. Martin, welcome to the show. What do you think? Do you think that actually we've already got the laws to put these people in jail or fine them, but we're not really using them?
I honestly believe, I mean, I'm in an ongoing debate with Welsh Water at the moment, and I've been waiting for a phone call back from them for 3 days because they just don't care. I get a lot of sludge and slime coming through my taps. They sent an engineer out. He looked at it and he went, "That's not right." He said, "That's not the tap. That's coming from the supply."
Right.
I mean, when you think of Welsh Water, you think of Mountain Springs and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
You know, the cliches and all the rest of it. But when I've got sludge and I can't drink tap water, you know, and I'm paying quite a lot of money to have a supply that you can drink. Well, I don't, because I drink bottled water now, because sludge and the slime that comes through the water system.
Martin, have you escalated this? Have you spoken to your local MP? I'm waiting for a phone call. I've been waiting 3 days to hear back from Welsh Water, and it's got to escalate now to my local MP. It has to, because this is ridiculous. It's a silly situation. No, Martin, you're right. Thank you. I hope you get that sorted. Thank you for that. I mean, it is what you were saying earlier, Yasmin, as well. It's a sense of injustice. We saw it a couple of days ago with Grenfell and the decisions there. People in charge of companies that are seen to do damage either to the environment or to society, being able to hide from justice in a way.
And let's not forget who started this privatisation insanity. It was the much revered Margaret Thatcher. This idea that all I think essential public services should never, ever be totally privatised. Okay. Maybe a section, but not totally.
That's a discussion for another day, I'm sure you'll be having. But look, we're going to move on